Hi friends, welcome to Edupedia World. I am CA Radhika Singhal. Today we are going to discuss regarding theories of capital structure. There are three theories in capital structure. One is net income approach, next is net operating income approach, and the third one is approach, Modigliani-Miller approach. These approaches are on the basis whether debt equity mix affect the value of the firm or not. Net income approach is with the one that debt equity mix actually affects the value of the firm. However, net operating income approach assumes that every capital structure is optimal capital structure. And Modigliani-Miller approach is basically a restatement of net operating income approach. Let's discuss net income approach first. Before we discuss all these approaches, there are certain general, or you can say a common assumption in these theories. One is there is only two sources of finance, that is debt and equity. And it's a perfect capital market structure, that is there is no taxation, no flotation cost. There is also an assumption that the cost of debt is always lesser than the cost of equity. Moreover, the business risk is same and the firm distributes its entire earnings to its shareholder. So whatever is the earning available to equity shareholder, the firm do not retain any portion of it. So the expectation is equal to the earning available for equity shareholder. First we are going to discuss net income approach. In net income approach, there is one additional assumption that the cost of equity and the cost of debt, they remain constant irrespective of the level of leverage. So whatever is the debt and equity ratio in the company, the cost of debt and cost of equity, or you can say the expectation of the debt holders or in the equity holders, do not change. So the main proposition behind this net income approach is, if you introduce more leverage, or if you leverage the company, you introduce more debt into the company, it is more beneficial. You say the higher the leverage ratio, the better it is for the company. This is because if you introduce more debt into the company, the overall cost of capital reduces. Why? Because the cost of debt is assumed to be less than cost of equity. As you introduce more debt into the company, the weight of debt will increase in comparison to the weight of equity. As the weight of debt increases, the overall weighted average cost of capital will reduce, and hence the cost of capital will fall, which is ultimately better for the company. To discuss further, you can say net income approach could be explained graphically as follows. As the debt equity ratio increases, the KO, the overall cost of capital, reduces. The KO will never be equal to the cost of debt because it is practically not possible that the company is completely funded through debt. There is 100% debt into the company and there is no owner's capital. So the KO line will never touch the cost of debt. The cost of debt and cost of equity will remain constant, and as it is more leveraged, the debt equity ratio rises, the cost of capital will reduces. Let us take a company with an investment of rupees 2 lakh. So in first scenario, the company has an investment only via equity. So we call that in scenario 1, the company is unlevered. There is no leverage, there is no debt portion in that company. In scenario B, the company has equal proportion of equity and debt. Let's say that the cost of equity is 12% and the cost of debt is 8%. So you all can see that based on these calculations, the equity earnings would be 50,000 in scenario 1 and 42,000 in scenario 2. So as the return on equity is 12%, we could say that the profit is 12% because all the earnings are distributed to the equity shareholder. So the return of earnings is equal to the return on the profit. You can say ROE of the company. So the market value in scenario 1 would be 50,000 by 12%, which is 4,16,667. What is the total value of the firm? The value of the equity plus value of debt. There are only two sources of finance, equity and debt. So the total of value of the firm in scenario A will be 4,16,667 because there is no debt into the firm. So value of debt will be 0. In scenario B, the market value of equity will be 3,50,000, right? That is 42,000 divided by 12%. This is 3,50,000. Market value of debt will be 1 lakh rupees, 10% debt. So the total value of the firm is 4,50,000. So there are two things. Like if I compute, let's compute the weighted average cost of capital first. So in scenario 1, the weighted average is 12%. Since the total weight is of equity. In scenario B, 50% of 12% and 50% of the 8%. That will be 11.10%. So the weighted average cost of capital in scenario B is 11.10%. So there are two things to observe. As the cost of capital decreases, the value of the firm goes up. So you could say there is an inverse relationship between the cost of capital and the value of the firm. In scenario 1, the company is unlevered. As you introduce more debt into the company, the cost of capital decreases and the total value of the firm. In scenario 1, it is 4,16,667 and in B, it raised to 4,50,000. So value of the firm increases. So this means that companies would like to employ as much debt as possible to increase the value of the firm. Right, let's do one illustration to use how net of using this NI approach we solve the problems. So this is an illustration. ABC Limited is expecting an annual earning before interest and tax, that is EBIT, of rupees 2 lakhs. The company in its capital structure has rupees 8 lakhs in 10% debentures. The cost of equity or equity capitalization rate is 12.5%. You are required to calculate the value of firm according to net income approach. Also compute the overall cost of the capital. So how are you going to solve it? What is value of equity? So value of equity can be computed by the earnings available to the equity shareholder divided by their expectations, right? Earning available is after paying the interest portion of the debenture holder. Let's go back to the question. There are 8 lakhs debenture of 10%. That means there is a 80,000 rupees interest burden. 2 lakhs is the EBIT. So what is the earning available to equity shareholder? 2 lakh less 80,000. 1 lakh 20,000. The KE is 12.50. So the value of equity will be 1 lakh 20 divided by 12.5, which is 9 lakh 60,000. Value of debt is given in the question, 8 lakh rupees. So the total value of the firm will be 17 lakh 60,000. Clear? If I have to compute cost of capital is the earning available divided by the value of the firm, right? Because if I have to compute the total overall value of the firm, I could even call it as like whatever is the earning available, EBIT, divided by cost of capital, basis which I can compute the cost of, or you can say value of the firm. So KO is EBIT upon value of firm. This could be more explained like value of the firm is value of debt plus value of equity. So value of debt is EBIT divided by cost of debt, and value of equity is EBIT less interest divided by KE. So value of firm is equal to EBIT by KO, because that is the proportion, that is how we compute the cost, overall cost of the capital. So in this case, cost of capital is 11.36%. Right. Now let's discuss the other approach, net income approach, operating income approach. So net operating income approach is on the proposition behind this all the capital structure is optimal capital structure. There is two assumptions behind this proposition. One is the cost of debt is constant, and the other one, the overall cost of the company will remain constant. How this is so? If the company introduces more capital by way of debt into the company, it increases the weight of debt. With the increase in the debt level ratio, there is also a rise in the expectation of the equity shareholder. So if the debt is more introduced, the KD will rise, and that will simultaneously rise the cost of equity shareholder. So with increase in debt, the overall cost, the KO will fall, but on the other hand, the cost of equity shareholder will rise. So in this way, the KO will remain same. There will be no change in the overall cost of capital. So the value of the firm will remain constant. So if the KO is constant, value of firm will be equal in every type of capital structure. So every capital structure is optimal according to this theory. To understand NOI approach, let us repeat the example we discussed earlier in net income approach. So let's take the two company that has an investment of rupees 2 lakh and a net operating income of 50,000. So we are considering two scenarios. In first scenario, there is no debt, and the second, there is an equal level of debt and equity of rupees 1 lakh each. So let's suppose that the company finds out the overall cost of capital of 10% and the cost of debt is 8%. What is the basic assumption of NOI? The KD and KO will remain constant. So KO will be 10% in both the scenarios, and cost of debt is 8% in both the scenarios. So in scenario 1, if I have to compute the cost of equity, that will be equal to KO because there is no debt, KO will remain same. So in scenario 1, the KE is 10%. What is the cost of equity in scenario B? The market value of the, or you can say the total capital of the firm will remain constant. So in scenario B, the total capital would be 5 lakh. Since the value of the debt is 1 lakh, the market value of equity could be computed by reducing the market value of the debt from the total value of the firm. So in scenario B, market value of equity will be 5 lakh less 1 lakh, 4 lakh rupees, right? This means that the equity capitalization can be calculated by subtracting the market value of the debt from the total market value of the firm. So in scenario B, if I have to compute KE, that will be earning available 42,000, which is 50,000 less 8,000, and the market value of equity, which is 4 lakh. So 42,000 divided by 4 lakh, which is 10.50%. So KE in scenario 1 will be 10%, and in scenario B, it increased to 10.50%. So the things to be noted here, as the company introduced debt into the company, since the KO is same, the expectation of equity shareholder will rise. Or in other words, you could say, if you introduce more debt into the company, KE will rise and ultimately the KO will remain at a constant level. This could be graphically explained as follows. Like, as the leverage or the DE ratio increases, the cost of debt and KO will remain same, and the cost of equity will rise as the DE ratio increases. Let's do one example to discuss how we use net operating income approach. ABC Limited is expecting an earning before interest and tax of rupees 4 lakh and belongs to the risk class of 10%. We are required to find out the value of the firm and cost of equity capital using net operating income approach. If it employs 8% debt to the extent of, so there are three scenarios, 20%, 8% debt, 35%, so this 25, 35 and 50 is the total financial requirement. So 20 lakh 20% or 20 lakh 35% of the total financial requirement of rupees 2 lakh. So first of all, we'll compute what is the value of the firm. Value of the firm is equals to EBIT upon KO, right? So EBIT is given 4 lakh rupees, KO is 10%, so value of firm is 40 lakh. In plan A, which is 20%, value of the equity will be value of the firm less value of the debt, right? So plan A, it will be 36 lakh. Likewise, we computed for plan B and plan C, where the value of equity is 33 lakh and 30 lakh. Using this value of equity, we can compute the cost of equity, next part of the question. So in plan A, in order to compute the value cost of equity, it will be earning available to equity shareholder divided by the value of equity. So KE in plan A would be 4 lakh less 32,000, earning available to equity shareholder divided by 36 lakhs, which is 10.22%. In plan B, cost of equity will be 10.42%, and likewise in plan C, the cost of equity is 10.67%. So you note that as the firm increases the debt, KD, the KE, the expectation of the equity shareholder, rises from 10.22 to 10.67%. Thank you so much. That's all for today.